to the vlog.
This week's topic is radio, specifically audio development. Radio is a form of entertainment that was developed for households to entertain and inform them in the early 1920s. And since its introduction has continued to catch the imagination of its listeners. The medium has been used in a variety of different ways, from news reports, music, talkback shows, lifestyle discussions, and also dramatizations. For some students, being able to look into a radio piece and develop a piece of audio allows them to look into what audio actually does to a piece, how it can portray what they're trying to get across to the audience, such as the tone and also the emotion that's being put across. This is a great insight for students who have normally only had that look into a visual aid, with photography and film being the primary candidates. Being able to look into radio allows them to look into another sense, and that is audio, and focus on that sense and really get to grasp with what that can put across to an audience member without any visual aid at all. The task that I've set up for the students will help them understand the easiest way of recording and editing their own audio piece. To do this, students will record their piece using their mobile phones and then go on and edit their piece using free software Audacity. To introduce the topic, however, students will first listen to a cut-down version of the dramatization of War of the Worlds, which was first aired in 1938. Introducing this topic using War of the Worlds as the starter can influence a great amount of discussions on the topic and technology and how it affects society. We can look back and discuss how War of the Worlds dramatization influenced society back then, and also how would it influence society now? Would it have the same effects? Or what could be done to put across those same effects with the technology that we currently have? Aside from these great overarching topics, we can start to look at the influence and dependencies that we have on media today as a source of information. From there, we can start to develop an analysis of what we actually heard and what might have made that broadcast sound so believable to its audience. Once this understanding has been put across to students, they can then go on to the actual activity. This activity asks for students to get into pairs or groups of 3 to develop their own War of the Worlds-esque radio broadcast. Initially, students will need to create their own world-threatening script and then go on to record it using their mobile phones. They'll need to record fake radio interviews and reports and also develop their own sound effects that can be added to the atmosphere. From there, students will need to go onto the computer and compile all of those sounds together to create their own final product. The final product should only be a few minutes long and developed over a few class periods. The purpose of this helps the project not only look at audio as its focus, but also at constraints in the actual media itself. These constraints that are imposed upon the students will look at time constraints, length of actual product constraints, and also the actual audio that they can create, being only in a classroom environment or in the school grounds. These constraints can help students go on to developing other pieces with certain constraints as well, and get an understanding on how to improvise.
The first thing students will need to do is write up a script. Students will need to have a clear idea going into this assignment of exactly what needs to be said and also what sound effects need to be created for their script. Once the script has been finalised, students can then get together in their group and read through it to see just how long it will actually play out for. Once this is done, they can start acting it out, recording their voices and also recording sound effects that will go well with their script. These sound effects can be created from inside or outside of the classroom. Naming and file conventions are a key aspect to this task. As such, I've made sure that I've named each one of my items quite carefully so that importing them into Audacity won't be too difficult. What I've done here is I've put in my news intro as well as the news reporter into Audacity. With the Move selection tool, I can move across the news reporter's dialogue so that it can happen just after the news intro audio sound clip has played through. Once this is done, I can then start editing the audio clip. As you can see, at the end of the reporter's section, I have a bit of white noise, so I'm just going to delete that by selecting it and pressing delete. Once all of the clips have been put in and moved to their correct locations, they can then be exported by going File, Export. That'll export as a WAV file. Mine's been completed, and you'll see it at the end of the video. Now that we've seen the steps that are needed to complete the task, we can now take a look at the actual resources that could be used to introduce the task to students. The first resource we'll look at is Audacity. It's a free program to utilize. This program allows students to record their own clips or import their own clips into Audacity and then edit them there. When using Audacity, they're able to generate different effects. They can also splice their clips together. The program also has an easy export option, which exports the audio file as a WAV format. That allows them to play it on virtually anything. The next resource is a recording of War of the Worlds. Being able to utilize this resource in a classroom environment allows for students to start getting ideas about their own tasks that they're about to do, and also incites some great discussions within the classroom. Students are able to analyze the piece and get an understanding as to why they got certain reactions from when it was first aired in 1938. FlashKit or Sound Bible are two great audio sources that students can use in the creation of their sound file. In these websites, they're used under the Creative Commons license, which allows them to utilize the audio without any fear of copyright restrictions. In doing this, students can take sound bites, repeating sound loops, or sound effects, and incorporate them into their final product. YouTube tutorials are once again a great place to go to get information on just getting the right audio recording that you need. Students can go on here and get information such as how to record audio, how to edit it using Audacity, and also how to put it together in a way that's believable or sounds like radio. Lastly, DVD special features are a great resource to utilize within a classroom environment. These special features can go over the score that was created during the film and also how the special effects audio was developed. More often than not, you'll find that these audio pieces are developed in warehouses with a lot of different tools accessible to the actual sound producers. These audio pieces are used to enhance sound that may have not been correctly picked up during the filming process, and it can also help students get an idea as to how to replicate these sounds within a classroom environment at a low budget.
The Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority points that we'll be looking at for this task will be set at a Year 9 standard under the creating and making aspects. Let's take a look at some of those techniques. The first point will be for students to understand the concept of the War of the Worlds and the audience of that given time. Given that listeners to the broadcast would not have heard anything like it previously, that mixed fictional entertainment with non-fictional presentation, and knowing this, students will need to develop their own version from that knowledge. The next point is similar to the last one. Students will also need to take into account their media platform of radio, and then in turn apply various different techniques that focus more on auditory entertainment rather than the visual components. This will require them to clearly communicate their ideas and intentions to the audience with different forms of media. And lastly, The ability for students to evaluate the classroom warm-up media extract, War of the Worlds, will need to be taken into consideration to best achieve their own task set to them during this activity. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again for the next one. The next topic will be stop motion. So until then, happy editing.
Good evening and welcome to the 7 p.m. Melbourne Catch-Up. I'm Paul Piper, and on the show tonight we have breaking news with Peter Pinto, who's currently at Federation Square, where there have been several sightings of tall, dark figures appearing around the city. Peter Pinto, what can you tell us?
Thank you, Paul Piper! And that is right. Tall, dark figures have begun appearing around the city of Melbourne early this afternoon. At the moment, they have not moved, and there is no explanation as to how they arrived or where they've come from. From where I am, I can see several of these things. They're unflinching, unmoving, and completely dark. I've heard onlookers describe them as shadows absorbing any light that touches them. People have been at an unease as to what these figures are and why they're here. Authorities have no information on the matter and refuse to leave any comments. But I do have with me an onlooker who has been watching the events unfold. It was about 3 o'clock when they first started showing her up. I was just walking down Main Street, and then there was this thing. No one knew what to do. No one knew where it came from. Everyone just avoided it. We thought maybe it was a street performer, or I don't know. They haven't moved. They're standing there. I don't know. No one's told us anything. That's the thing. They haven't told us what these things are. We just want answers. You turn around and there's more of them. There's more of them showing up now. I don't know. What was that? An accident has just occurred across the street from me. A creature. They're standing in the middle of the road. I don't know why they're there or how they got there. They weren't there before. And now, what? The person we had been just interviewing, there seems to be now just a dark figure there. I didn't see. I don't know if they moved or if it just arrived here. They seem to be moving now. I don't know what they want. What do you want? No, get away. No! Get away! No!
This task that I've set up will look at students developing their own audio piece. They'll record the piece in class and then go into an editing software, such as the free program Audacity, and edit the software. Edit the software, of course, because they didn't want to edit the audio.